Hi guys, week 2, video 3, it's me. So we're gonna start this video with magnetoencephalography. There is a video that goes with this called MEG or magnetoencephalography. With that one, I think I also have time where you can stop watching. I'll put that on the video because there's a time where first they talk about the MEG, but then they talk about how great they are because it's Cook's Children up in Dallas. But I mean, it's great that, and you can watch that part if you want, but it's just not relevant to our course. So the MEG uses EEG technology, so that's electricity, right, to examine electrical currents within cells and neurons that generate magnetic currents over the surface of the brain. It provides images of surface level currents, and it allows for cognitive activities during the procedure, including motor, language, memory, and executive functions, and allows for identification of abnormal electrical brain activity during specific tasks to help clarify diagnosis, including in pre-op patients with seizures. It's useful in both pre-op and post-op documentation for people with seizures and traumatic brain injuries. So again, before the surgery to help, and then after, and then to continue to measure hopefully improvement in the brain after surgery. And it also increases the understanding of normal functioning in healthy brains. It only examines electrical activity, and it does not consider structural or chemical abnormalities. I use the term executive functions, which may be a new term to some of y'all. Executive functions are the skills that we use to sort of get things done and be on time. And there are different discussions about how many executive functions are, but so in my role as an LSSP, it's mainly, say, focused on, so you're given a task to do. So first you plan, what do I need to do to complete this task? I start the task, I stay on task, finish it, I turn it into the teacher, that sort of thing. Also, some people think, sort of time management. I think it's McCloskey, who I love with this in this area, the ability to sort of have the inner clock. There's also emotional executive functioning, how well you are able to control your emotions. So executive functions is sort of the brain. Some people say it's kind of like a CEO of the brain or the conductor of the brain that says, you start here, you stop. It's initiating task. It's holding yourself back from when you want to maybe deck that guy or whatever who's been rude to you. So those are executive functions briefly. I'm sure we'll go over those in more detail later. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is neuropsychological evaluations. Video for that called What is Neurocognitive Testing? And there are 2 videos. There's 1 and 2 that I think are important for y'all. There is also a 3 and 4 if you want to watch for your own edification, but you don't have to. So neuropsych testing determines objective cognitive and behavioral functioning in individuals with neurobehavioral difficulties. It documents their current levels of functioning. It can clarify diagnoses and assist in treatment planning. So for example, we have a tumor, it's been removed. So we kind of know from our scans what's going on here, but what does that mean functionally? So the neuropsychological testing can measure where you are functionally. What can you do? What can't you do? Your book says that it's only neuropsychologists and one other kind of psychologist, but it's trained professionals. I mean, you should be skilled in the area, but you don't have to be a neuropsychologist. You have to just be trained in it. And that goes for any administration of any testing. You should be trained in it before you do it. Neuropsych testing examines memory, attention, language, visual, spatial, and perceptive skills, motor skills, and executive functions. So it's a bunch of stuff, and it's tied directly to regions in the brain. It can be paper and pencil, computer-based, oral-based, kind of like little game-like activities. It uses normative data to compare performance of others of the same age, gender, race, and educational level. And so that means that the test developers have administered it to hopefully large groups of people to make accurate determinations statistically about whether you're where you're supposed to be kind of for your age and your demographics, and then taking other things into account to see where your deficits may be and where your strengths are. We have to remember strengths all the time. Let's see, it helps to determine if there are organic or psychological reasons for behaviors. It's used for research and clinical purposes. Clinical evaluations, like I said, can help determine if a person is able to function independently in a variety of settings. And so maybe after a brain injury, are you ready? What level of activity can you sustain? Can you go to school? Can you go to work? Can you live alone? Can you drive? Can you, that sort of thing. It can help with the functional, the functional parts of having something going on with your brain. So the book says that cognitive impairment, dementia, or mild cognitive impairment can only be determined accurately via neuropsych testing. But so in my training, though, so what they're calling neuropsych testing is what's in my training, the thing that all school psychologists learn how to do, which is cognitive testing. So in my experience, plain old cognitive testing, like where you're measuring somebody's cognitive ability or what we think of as IQ, is for everybody. But neuropsych is a specialty, and so again, you're going to have specialized training in those tests, and you should not administer them unless you have that training. These tests are most useful when there's baseline testing prior to an injury, which is happening more and more with populations who have a higher risk of brain injuries, such as football players. The next thing is behavior genetic testing, which is a relatively new way of understanding behaviors with a focus on the hereditary nature of many psychiatric disorders. So with the completion of the Human Genome Project, it really brought to light the ways that psychiatric conditions are linked to genetics, and then it links the genetics influences to certain behaviors. And right now I'm going to share with you one of what I found the most interesting thing that really stuck with me for my training is the idea of genotype, which are your genes that you have, and your phenotype, which is the expression of your genes. So that's kind of even like when they're identical twins, they have the same phenotype, but they might be slightly different. This person prefers chocolate and this person likes bananas, whatever. So that's the phenotype, how it's expressed. And so what's really important to think about, especially with psychiatric illness, and if you live with your biological parents, so you have their genes. So your genotype has, this expression for this psychiatric disorder, but your parents have their genotypes and their own phenotypes. How do they express their genes? And so you may have a parent or parents with a genotype that says, oh, you're going to have disorder X and it's not going to be great. However, if their genotypes are sort of more adaptive and that they can control their own difficulties better, then maybe your genotype will also be different and not express necessarily exactly what your genes have to say that are going to happen. There's that so nature versus nurture thing, which it's not even versus, it's nature and nurture. I think we've come to that. It's both. So then that you have twin studies, maybe with twins who have been raised separately, and look at how they're different being raised by adoptive parents who, of course, don't share their genotype with their parents, but and then it can really allow for the phenotype to come through. I hope that makes sense. It was fascinating to me, and just to think about how just because you have a gene doesn't mean it's going to be expressed in just one way. So I think that's cool. So that's where we are. We're at the end of the stuff at the book. I'm going to post some more videos for you. I'm going to set up the discussions. There's going to be one more video about some grammar stuff as we get started, because I am a grammar nerd. Thanks for your attention, y'all, and I'll see you in the next video.